Hey, it's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft. We don't know if it was a private aircraft. We have no idea how many were on board or what the extent of the injuries are right now.
Welcome back, everyone, to another video here on the Professor Failure channel. I'm your host, Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about the 9/11 terrorist attack. And with me today is Melanie Curtis.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Now, before we begin, I just want you to know that I spent a lot of time working on this video, so if you knew someone who is involved in the 9/11 terrorist attack, then this video might not be for you. Also, I want you to know that I debated very heavily on if I should even release this video, but with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the 9/11 terrorist attack.
September 11, 2001, tragedy struck when 4 planes had been hijacked as a horrible event unfolded and went into the book of history. Almost as popular as the Titanic and the World Wars, the 9/11 terrorist attack changed history forever, and this is how it all happened.
At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 from Boston was carrying 92 people when it crashed into the World Trade Center complex at 470 miles per hour. The tower burst into flames within minutes, but that's not all that happened that day.
At 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, carrying 65 people, had also crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center at 590 miles per hour.
Everyone was concerned with the Trade Center being hit that what happened next was not expected, because nearby at the Pentagon, which serves as the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense, was also hit at 9:37 a.m. The damage was so severe that 184 people died at the Pentagon.
Although this was not over, news got out that a plane was missing. Flight 93 had changed directions and was going to crash into the White House. But the people who had hijacked the plane were smart in their plan and had cut off all communication with aircraft control.
Although a call had came into the GET phone center that was pretty alarming. Lisa Jefferson had gotten onto the phone call with a man named Todd Beamer, a passenger on United 93. He told her that 3 people had taken over the flight.
Even though the hijackers really had no way of fighting since they were navigating a plane, they had announced that they had a bomb and they were in control of the plane and they were going back to the airport. On the airphone, Todd Beamer told Lisa about the hijackers and what they were doing, and it turns out that they were heading to Washington, D.C.
At this point, the World Trade Center bombing had become known to the people on Flight 93, and the passengers on Flight 93 had now known that they were in trouble. Todd had told Lisa that they were thinking about trying to save the plane. She had said that he could try to do so. The last thing that Lisa heard from Todd was, quote, "Are you ready? Let's roll."
Just a little while later, they had heard that the plane had crashed in Pittsburgh. Lisa had described it as almost losing a good friend, and I think the reason that the White House is still standing today is because of those heroic people.
Both towers were on fire and were burning at a rapid pace, and in only 56 minutes the South Tower had fallen on the ground at 9:59 a.m. Thousands of people who were near the area were rushed away from the scene, and anyone who was still alive in the towers were also being rushed out of the area.
At 10:28, the television mast on the North Tower had gone straight through the North Tower, killing hundreds. Thousands were injured, including civilians near the area. Firefighters, police, paramedics, and EMTs.
In Lower Manhattan, the power had gone out, and over 230 million calls had been made out. And there were still hundreds of firefighters trapped in the tower, still alive, and hundreds of first responders had come to the rescue, but it was too late. It was not only the Twin Towers that had been a problem, because World Trade 4, 5, and 6 were on fire as well. World Trade 7 had burned for 7 hours, and at 5:20 p.m. it had collapsed.
New York was in trouble. Residents that had lived nearby were leaving. Some of those residents left by walking on the Brooklyn Bridge. At 7:45 p.m., it is announced that 78 officers are missing and over 200 firefighters are dead.
Inside of one of the Twin Towers, a picture was taken of 28-year-old Marcy Borders, who worked at the Bank of America located in the World Trade Center. She was photographed completely covered in dust, and the image became so well known that it became known as the Dust Lady. Marcy Borders died on August 24th of 2015. She was 42 years old.
And then September 11th, 2001 ended. 2,996 people died that day, and countless amounts of people were injured from the fire and crash of the Twin Towers. And that, my friends, was what happened on September 11th of 2001. You can ask almost anyone who was alive during that time where they were and what they experienced that day. And from what I've heard, almost everyone remembers.
After the events had taken place, the current president had given a speech about what had taken place that day.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
After the September 11th attacks, it took 9 months to clean up the 1.8 million tons of wreckage of the Twin Towers, and the final cost to clean up the World Trade Center area cost about $1.5 billion.
Shortly after the cleanup of the Twin Towers, the Pentagon was repaired since it didn't completely fall apart like the Twin Towers did, and is now running as of 2022.
After the 9/11 terrorist attack, the 9/11 Memorial was built as a tribute of remembrance. This was to honor the 2,996 people killed in the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 at the World Trade Center site near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon. The memorial also included the 6 people who were killed in the World Trade Center bombing on February 26, 1993.
They also have made a Flight 93 memorial dedicated to the brave people who saved countless amount of lives, which you can visit today.
Now we're going to talk about something that I find to be pretty interesting. They built a ship out of the remains of the Twin Towers. After the Twin Towers had been destroyed and cleaned up, over 7 tons of steel from the Twin Towers were forged into the hull of this warship. I guess they put the phrase, reduce, reuse, recycle to a whole new level.
Construction started for the ship September 10th of 2004, and it was launched on December 20th of 2007. It is 684 feet long, and it weighs 21,455 tons.
And since we're on the ship topic, I also wanted to mention that in 1980, they made a movie called Raise the Titanic. It's a movie that was released showing us what it would be like if we raised the Titanic. It's 2022 and we still haven't done that. Anyway, it shows that once they raise the Titanic, there's a scene in the movie where they show the ship coming to New York and the Twin Towers are in the background of this shot. I think it's the closest those legends will ever get to meeting each other.
Construction on the World Trade Center's North Tower began in August of 1968 and the South Tower in 1969. They were completed in 1973, although they weren't cheap because the final cost to build it was around $900 million. The Pentagon was built, oddly enough, on September 11th of 1941. It was a sad story that I wish I could tell you myself, but that's why we brought in Pastor Andy Curtis to tell you his story of the 9/11 terrorist attack.
2001, in all honesty, seemed like it was going to be a pretty normal day. I don't recall having any pressing engagements that day, so I'd anticipated actually sleeping in, getting some rest, and the morning of, I was awakened by a friend making some noise and commotion in the house, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on because I was just still coming out of sleep, and when things started finally making sense, all I could hear was, America's under attack. I didn't really understand what this meant, so we gathered around a TV in the living room with a group of very close friends, and by that time the first plane had already hit, and we were glued to the TV just trying to figure out what in the world is going on. This is something we'd never ever witnessed before. And then we saw the second plane on live TV. there's not really words that could be said. We were sitting there trying to process something that's not really able to be processed. And then the buildings began to collapse, and I don't really remember anything else from that particular day. It's all pretty much a fog after that. It was nothing like what we had expected. I do remember this on that day. After the towers fell, I couldn't really figure out which one was louder. The deafening silence of so many people dying at one time, or all of creation groaning because humanity really hadn't found a better way. To be honest with you, I still don't know that I've processed it. I still ask myself that question. Since September 11th, I've been to New York a few times. And I had been to New York a few times before the actual event. And I will tell you that the entire skyline is different, not having the towers there. But when you stop to look at that scene, if you knew it beforehand and now you see it, and they have the monument there and those sorts of things, but when you stop to look at it, you recognize pretty much immediately there's a hole in the New York skyline. But there's not just a hole in the New York skyline, because that hole there tells a bigger story. That there's a hole in all of creation. There's a brokenness in all of creation that we absolutely must overcome, because there is a better way. We lost so much on that day, not just the Twin Towers, not just the planes. We lost over 2,000 lives and all the family members and friends associated with those who died. That in and of itself is a tragic story. But also the sense of safety and the sense of trust then turned into a sense of mistrust, which the world continues to wrestle with. But the one thing that, being so many years removed from the actual scene today, that I have to continue to hang on to, is that as only God can do, somehow out of the rubble, somehow out of the holes in the skylines and the brokenness of all of creation and humanity, I have to have hope. And we have to have hope that out of that rubble and out of that brokenness, somehow, as only God can do, God will do something magnificent and spring forth a greater hope and redemption for all of us.
So that was the story of the 9/11 terrorist attack. Thank you everyone so much for watching today's video. I understand that this can be a sensitive subject for some, but it's a story that everybody needs to know. There were innocent people killed that day, and it affected everybody. I hope this video isn't depressing, but it's something that you can now and go look into some more. I'm sorry if you knew someone who was involved in this event, but if you remember what happened that day, I would love to see your story shared in the comments below. I also want to thank Melanie for coming in today's video.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see you in the 100 subscriber special.
Bye everyone, I'm your host Andrew, signing out.